And you know, there are few art forms more popular than film. And I'll admit it, it's a stereotype. Gay men and lesbians love film. And there is no greater film festival in the world than Frameline. Today we're speaking with Jennifer Morris, Director of Programming. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, you know, we were chatting before the cameras went on that this is still the largest LGBT cultural event in the world, correct?
Yes, I do believe it still is, definitely,
so,
for an arts event.
Yeah, how many films are we going to see this coming
Well,
June?
231 films from 30 different countries.
Now, for someone who just crawled out from under a gay rock,
Right.
Tell us, what is Frameline, how did it start, and where can people experience it?
Well, we started, of course, here in San Francisco in 1977, and we're actually celebrating our 35th anniversary this year, which is exciting. And we are the largest and oldest LGBT film festival, so we've been screening films by LGBT filmmakers for 35 years.
You know, it's hard to believe that 35 years ago when this started, the idea of doing a gay film festival was really quite risky.
It was risky. In fact, the first screening happened in a community center. They put up a sheet, and the filmmakers, no one else is showing our films, we're going to show our films. It was started by filmmakers.
And, I mean, at that time, there was no one's talking about same-sex marriage. This was
exactly.
pre-AIDS, although pre-AIDS before we knew it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look back at the archivals, the scrapbooks, the pictures, the press clippings, some of the films from back then, what strikes you? You've been programming the festival how long now?
Oh, for 16 years.
So what strikes you when you look back at that history?
Well, I look back and I see, well, number one, much fewer films. Many fewer films, shorter films, and I would say the breadth of topics, you know, in the films was much smaller. Now, I mean, we have so many different films, and every kind of aspect of our community is finally getting representation in the movies.
Well, you raise a good point. I remember when I moved to San Francisco from Richmond, Virginia in the mid-'80s, if there was a gay film, it probably meant a gay white film.
Yes.
And it was a coming out story,
yes.
And the boys were young and cute. And then into the 90s, it was all about AIDS, HIV. And then we started actually seeing, wow, lesbian films and lesbian sexuality and transgender images.
Exactly.
I mean, the history of Frameline has really been a history of our community coming out within itself.
It's true. I mean, it started out as the Gay Film Festival, then became the Lesbian and Gay Festival, and now we are the LGBT Film Festival.
You just keep adding letters.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll stop it for
Yeah. Now, tell us.
But it shows you how much film, where film has come, really, that we can see that many stories and get that much representation in our films.
How much of an impact on film, and I use that term broadly, not just LGBT film, but even Hollywood film, mainstream film, quote unquote, how much of an impact do you think Frameline has had on that world?
I think it's had a strong impact. Even if you look at a lot of the filmmakers who've had shorts in our film festivals, they're now in Hollywood. They're making features. They're working in television, and I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing, you know, so many good queer characters on television right now and in the media. But I think it also, it gave people a chance to see our films and to realize. And understand more about our community.
Right. You talk about some of the filmmakers that got their start in Frameline.
Yeah.
Tell us some of the names.
Well, even Lisa Cholodenko, who just did The Kids Are All Right. We screened her short films years and years ago. And there's a lot of other directors who had then, did short films and are now, directing TV shows and in other kinds of positions. So, yeah.
What has been your favorite film that you've ever programmed? That's probably a hard question for a programmer.
It's a terribly hard question. But I would say Show Me Love by Lucas Moodysson. Wonderful. I think that was one of the first films to really capture a young person coming out. It was about a young girl who falls in love with a classmate and is from Sweden. And just adorable, wonderful. And something that everyone could watch that film and understand what was going on for this character.
And you know, for a lot of people here in San Francisco or in California, or also through your distribution network, because Frameline doesn't just put on a festival.
That's
you
right.
distribute films all over the country.
Absolutely.
Except probably for a few southern states, correct?
Well, now actually we're yeah, a few southern states. We're actually global now. We just started a new program called Frameline Voices, and we're actually streaming a lot of our films for free out on YouTube and Vimeo. So, and we're getting hits from all over the world, including China. So we're kind of getting global.
That's interesting. Yeah, I had Helen Zia, a lesbian Chinese activist, on the show a few months ago, and we were talking about being open in China. And she said, well, China's interesting. She said there's no law against it in China, but there's also nothing really supporting it.
Right.
And I spoke to a friend in Shanghai who's gay and said, do you have a gay pride parade? He said, no, not because you're gay, but the Chinese government doesn't like parades, more than 2 or 3 people together.
Exactly.
Speaking of China and the international aspect of Frameline, you've done also some films that have been very controversial. Films about being LGBT in Israel, in Palestine, and other countries.
Yes.
What do you think was the most controversial international portrait you've ever done?
I don't know. Controversial. That's a good question. I would think every year we show films that are probably controversial in that we don't shy away from showing what's happening everywhere in the world and to LGBT people everywhere. But it's a good question. I don't know if I can say what's the most controversial.
Is there one that you ever wished you hadn't programmed?
No. I can't say there's...
Even though you've taken heat for some stuff.
I've taken heat for some stuff. We've taken some heat. And, but yeah, I can definitely say that.
Talk to us about what we're going to see this year and what especially you're excited about.
Well, I'm very excited that we just have some absolutely fantastic films. Our opening night film, Gun Hill Road, is an amazing film. It's a transgender film. And I think it really represents where we've come, that we can see this story about a transgendered teen in the Bronx, and it was played at Sundance. It got picked up for distribution. It's such a powerful, accomplished film. And one thing I am excited about is we actually have a lot of really good transgender films in the festival this year. So we're actually doing a special focus on transgender film. And we're going to have a very special clip show by Susan Stryker and Jenny Olson that's going to look at transgender images in cinema throughout time, so from the silence to right now.
Right.
So,
you know, one of the things that has been a revelation to me since moving to San Francisco was the coming out, in a sense, within the LGBT community, of the transgender community. And I get a sense sometimes that that's now, we're getting there, we understand that part of our community better, but we still have real hesitancy about dealing with the quote-unquote bisexual community within our midst.
Yes.
So tell me about some of the bisexual films.
Well, actually...
And do you think that's true, that we do still have trouble dealing with that?
Oh, absolutely. I see lots of biphobia out there, and every year I've been trying to, I bring in bisexual curators, and we have a bisexual shorts program, and it's always hard to find enough films to even fill that program, but this year there was some absolutely fantastic films, and including our centerpiece narrative film we're very excited, is a bisexual film by Tom Tweaker, who directed Run Lola Run. He has a new film called 3. And we were actually realized that our 4 big nights all represent the L, the G, the B, and the T.
We got them all in.
We got them all in. So we're very happy to have a bisexual film that's just so accomplished and good that we can screen as our centerpiece film.
It seems like Frameline every year sells out. There's always lines down the block in any one of your, I mean, you're at the Castro Theater, which is kind of the iconic image that a lot of people have of the gay community in California, if not the world. The Roxy, where else?
The Victoria Theater
and
as
you're also
well.
in Berkeley this year.
Yes, we're in Berkeley at the Rialto Cinemas Elmwood Theater.
So with all those people lined up down the block, that means you're making lots of money, right? The recession hasn't hurt you at all.
Well, an interesting thing that people should know is that the ticket sales from a film festival never pay the cost of actually putting on the film festival. That's maybe 30% of our budget. And the rest comes from members and donors, from grants and funders and sponsors. And really that's where a large portion of the money comes from.
So you got as many as you used to?
Well, actually, sponsors, yes. Funders, maybe not. But it's been, it's been a tough economy, and so we've been struggling, but we're doing really well, and we're going very strong. So I think this is one of our strongest years, which is great. You know,
there was a time when the idea of an LGBT anything getting federal or state funding wasn't even possible.
Yes.
Do you get any public funds?
We do. We're actually one of the only LGBT arts organizations to receive stimulus funding from the NEA.
So wait a minute. So the stimulus bill
Yes.
It helped Frameline?
It did.
So it stimulated LGBT film?
Maybe that's why we're doing so
I think you should put one of those signs like
I
they have on,
know.
on the highway whenever they build a new bridge, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. I think you should put that in the program.
I know. Yeah.
But so that was a grant specifically from the stimulus package through the NEA.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
you've been doing this for, you said, 7, 8 years as a programmer?
Well, actually 16.
16, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Where did you come from? How did you discover this passion for film?
I came from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, I was definitely a TV addict. And then I went to UCLA film school, and I wasn't so crazy about Los Angeles, and I came here to San Francisco. I used to visit, and I just love San Francisco and the people in San Francisco, and it sort of started from there. I actually started volunteering at this film festival.
And what was...
About 20 years ago.
Was that part of your coming out process?
Was that part of my... Well, I think film definitely was a part of my coming out process. I think of a lot of people as a young person. They used to show a lot more movies on television. It wasn't reality TV back then, and I saw all kinds of films. And I think that definitely I saw myself almost kind of reflected, in those movies, and it helped me to come out, definitely.
Do you think that's one of the most important aspects of seeing our images on film, that we actually see ourselves on film, and it's not drunken homosexuals trying to commit suicide, it's not crazed lesbians with an ice pick.
Exactly, and that's why I think LGBT film festivals are so important, because we're showing the films you're not going to see on TV that are, some of them are going to make it to the theater, but many of them aren't. But absolutely, I think that's you see yourself, you're not alone. And I think for a lot of people, you don't get that in your history books. You're not going to learn it at school. You're not going to see it on TV, especially in the past. So I think definitely it is very key.
Great.
Film is very key for identity.
And people who want information can go online to?
Frameline.org.
Great.
Real simple.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Jennifer Morris from the Frameline Festival. Next up, we're going to meet Hedgehog Boy himself, graphic novelist Renee Capone. We'll be right back.